Welcome in to your Monday edition of Bet. I'm your host, Anita Marks, and we've got Eric, Moody, and Andre Snellings standing by. They're going to be joining me momentarily. What do we know from last night? The series is tied. We're talking a lot about the NBA Finals and the Heat. They beat the Denver Nuggets. Dare I call a sweep prior to Game 2? I did. It was at 3-1. It didn't happen. The Heat beat the Denver Nuggets 111-107. Jokic, even though he put up 41 points, Jamal Murray had a chance to tie it up with a three-pointer at the end of the game to send it into overtime. But it didn't happen. So now we're sitting here with the series at 1-1. So let's bring in the fellas. Like I said, we got Eric and Dre joining us on Bet today. Good afternoon, gentlemen. As always, it's Monday, so we're going to start the show with the good word. Here we go. The Heat plus 220 to win the finals now. Now, keep in mind, they were plus 330 before this series started. So, Eric, let's start with you. What's your good word?
The good word is resilient. Nobody expected this Miami Heat team to make it to the NBA Finals as the number 8 seed. But one thing I love about this Heat team, Anita, is that they're mentally tough. They're very comfortable when the odds are stacked against them. Also, they're well coached with Erik Spoelstra and the staff that he's put together. But I would say the most important thing, they're really great at making adjustments, and that was evident in Game 2. You've got Jimmy Butler locking down Jamal Murray. The Heat, they controlled the fourth quarter with not only defense, but also with pace as well. And neither team had a transition point, which benefited Miami. And the Heat were also more aggressive attacking the basket in Game 2. If you look at some of the detailed stats, it's eye-opening with how they improved from Game 1 to Game 2. Also, Bam Adebayo did an excellent job of limiting Nikola Jokic as a playmaker. So the Heat are going to compete in every game. So again, the good word is resilient.
I hear you. Dre, what's your good word?
Creed, as in Creed and Rocky versus the Dragos. The Nuggets are like almost cartoonishly oversized compared to the Heat. They have a huge size advantage, and after Game 1, it really seemed like they said, we must break the Heat. But just like Creed and Rocky, the Heat have the weapons to make this a tough fight. And, for me personally, I like the spread. I like to go Heat plus 1.5 games at this point for almost even money. But if you're really a believer in the Creed and Rocky theme and you're expecting a Heat upset, you might consider leaning all the way in and going Heat minus 1.5 for plus 350. Because if the Heat were to pull the upset, it would most likely happen in South Beach in Game 6, where you would cash and get a little bit of extra juice.
Aren't you getting sneaky with the way that you're playing this series? My good word is pass, as in something we really didn't see Jokic do a lot last night, and as to why I believe they lost Game 2. Listen, I still believe in this Nuggets team. I'm not going to lay any wagers in regards to the Miami Heat winning this series. What's really interesting is that the Denver Nuggets had a better offensive rating in Game 2 than they did in Game 1. 124 as opposed to 118 in Game 1. They had better field goal shooting percentage. They had better three-point shooting percentage as well. So what gives? Why did they lose? The Heat almost shot 50% from downtown, guys. I'm sorry. That is not happening again. I don't see Denver playing such mediocre defense, giving such unbelievable looks to the role players. It wasn't even Jimmy Butler, right? To the role players for the Miami Heat. And I do believe that Denver is going to counter with an Erik Spoelstra and the Miami Heat brought to the table defensively against Jokic, eliminating those pipeline assists that he so eloquently puts up in those triple doubles each and every time he takes the court. All right, here we go. Number 2, Jokic, minus 250 to win the Finals MVP. Now, keep in mind, it was minus 360 before the series started. So, Eric, let's go back to you. What's your good word?
Yeah, the good word is adapt. One thing about Nikola Jokic is that he's going to have to adapt what he's doing based on what the Heat throws at him. That was one observation I had from Game 2. He's just got to do what he can to put the Nuggets in a better position to win. So the Heat set up a trap for him in Game 2, and he stepped right into it. They really wanted to force Jokic to be, I would say, more of a scorer, which was ultimately the detriment of his teammates, I would say. And it's no secret. You look at this Denver Nuggets team, they are at their best when Jokic is a facilitator. Now the Nuggets, now get this, Anita, the Nuggets are now 0-3 in these playoffs, in these NBA playoffs, and 0-4 all time in the playoffs when Jokic scores 40 or more points. So I'm curious to see in the next game what adjustments that the Nuggets make in order to get everyone more involved, because this is going to be a must-win game, but more on that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Dre?
Patience. As in, if you're patient and wait until after game 3, I think those odds for Jokic will be even better because unlike Anita, I think the Heat take game 3 as well. And coming into this series, I picked the Nuggets to win in 7. I'm sticking with that. And obviously, if the Nuggets win, then Jokic is the most likely MVP. So I like the idea of being able to get Jokic for MVP, but not at minus 250, not at minus 360. Like, there's just not enough juice there. So I say if you wait until Thursday after the Heat go up 2-1 and you can get closer to even money on that Jokic MVP, I think that's the best value you're likely to see. And unless or until I see that, I'm going to remain patient and stay out because minus 250 is just not enough juice for me.
Wow, Dre, you're feeling really confident there, dude. My good word is tardy, as in you're tardy to the party. I was telling people to put money down on Jokic to win the MVP a month ago, 6 weeks ago, when it was 10-1, 7-1, and he was getting no respect from the odds makers. But here's the thing: if you are in Dre's camp and you believe that this Miami Heat team is potentially gonna win, sit back, wait. I'm sure those odds are gonna drop. If you're in my camp and you believe that the Denver Nuggets are gonna win the series, actually, if they do win the series, and Doug Kazarian pointed this out on Daily Wager the other day, then there's no brainer. Denver wins the series, Jokic is winning the MVP, and right now you can get better odds with Jokic winning the MVP than you can with Denver winning the series. Just some food for thought. All right, let's take a look at some of the series odds that are out there right now, gentlemen. Okay, and Dre, let's start with you, of course. Last time you were on Bet, you had the Nuggets in 7 last week. Are you sticking to that, or are you changing?
I'm sticking with that. Based on what I saw in those first 2 games, it just supported that, to me, this should be a long, hard-fought series. And ultimately, with the home court advantage, with Mile High, I think the Nuggets could probably still win on the road. So I'm going to stick with the Nuggets in 7 as the most likely outcome. But I might supplement that with Heat in 6, which you could get at plus 500 or plus 550. Because as I mentioned earlier, if the Heat are to win, they really have to control home court. I think the Nuggets win Game 5 in Denver, so the only way I see the Heat winning is if they win out at home, which means they would win it in 6. So I'm sticking with Nuggets in 7, but if you're feeling froggy, I might supplement that with Heat in 6.
Yeah, it sounds like you're feeling froggy. Eric, you had the Nuggets in 6 last week, last time you were on Bet. Are you sticking with that?
You know what, Anita? I am sticking with that recommendation, and I'm gonna explain myself here. So we all know the old adage, right, in the NBA Finals, that it doesn't truly begin until the home team loses. And so the manner in which the fourth quarter unfolded on their home court for the Nuggets has to be a huge wake-up call for Denver, because I was in shock, just given how Miami controlled the fourth quarter of that game. But you brought this up, Anita. The Heat made, 48.5% of their triples in Game 2. I don't think history is going to repeat itself there, and I do see the Nuggets really limiting the Heat's number of triples in Game 3. Also, just expect a big game from Jamal Murray. He's really going to have to step up, because if Jamal Murray's on and Jokic is on, it really increases their chances of winning, the next game, but also the series. And I know the Nuggets are favored in this series, and it's for a very good reason. But Game 3 will be very important, so I'll close on this. When the NBA Finals are tied 1-1, the team that wins Game 3 goes on to win the championship 80% of the time. So again, I cannot stress the importance of this game and for Denver to win it.
I hear you. I had the Denver Nuggets in 5, and I'm sticking to it. Again, A lot of credit to Eric Spoelstra coming out and playing the defense that they did. Jokic, whenever he scores 40 points or more, believe it or not, the Denver Nuggets don't win much. So it's evident. I think it's a chess game right now. And Denver needs to come out and make sure that their role players are getting those assists and those lanes are open and playing with a lot more fire in regard to those role players stepping up. And like you said, E, I just don't believe that the Miami Heat is going to be that great. Keep in mind, in the regular season, they were 27th in the NBA from shooting three-pointers. So I'm sticking with my 5. All right, guys, let's talk about the game specifically, right? The line is out right now. Nuggets favored by 2.5. The over-under's 215.5. Keep in mind, the Heat, home dogs, again, they're 4-0 against the spread at home so far this postseason. So, Eric, let's start with you. How are you playing Game 3?
Well, I do like the Heat in this one in the underdog role. This is a team, again, they are not going down without a fight. They're going to play hard on their home floor. Also, you've got the Heat. They're expected to have Tyler Hero back soon. His defense, it could be a liability. Who knows? But I'm just, if I'm Eric Spoelstra, I'm sitting there thinking, I've got such great chemistry with the team that I have together right now in the rotations. Do I want to tinker with that and give Hero significant minutes? So I'm curious to find out what that looks like. But I really do like the Heat here. They're 7-2 against the spread in their last 9 games. Now, if I'm looking at the total, I like the over here. This is going to be a high-scoring game between these two teams. To give you some numbers as well. The total has gone over in 6 of the Nuggets' last 9 games on the road. Keep that in mind. Denver is going to come out aggressive. The Heat is going to have to match that. Now, the total has gone over in 5 of the Heat's last 6 games against a Western Conference opponent, so keep that in mind. Last but not least, if you're looking at a player prop, I love Jamal Murray over 31.5 points plus assists. So he finished with only 18 points in Game 2, his lowest output of the postseason. Again, if the Nuggets are going to win this upcoming game in the series, Jamal Murray needs to be operating at all cylinders. And he's averaged 27.9 points and 6.3 assists per game in his last 2 games. So I do like the over on PA for Jamal Murray. So.
All right, Dre, you're up, man. How are you playing Game 3?
Well, a lot like Moody, I'm going Heat plus 2.5. I might even do some Heat money line because I do think they have a good chance to win at home. The game, for one thing, there's a 3-day gap between Sunday to Wednesday. The Heat play better. They have this high energy style. They play better when they get the extra day of rest. I think we just saw some of that between games 1 and 2. There was also 3 days off. Also, the game being back at South Beach means that the Heat role players should be unlocked, including and especially, Anita, the man that's on your shirt, Caleb Martin, who was dealing with illness during those first couple of games in Denver, but he has some time to get healthy, and he's due for a big game after the way that he dominated against the Celtics last round, and he's off to a really slow start offensively in this series. As far as props, I agree with Moody. I like Jamal Murray over 25.5. I also like Nikola Jokic over 9.5 assists because, as you guys have been pointing out, the big defensive adjustment from the Heat last game was to play Jokic one-on-one and put Jimmy Butler on Jamal Murray to limit him. I expect the Nuggets to counter-adjust. I expect to see Jokic set up top with a lot of pick action to take advantage of maybe Kevin Love's slow feet and also to get Butler off of Jamal Murray. I expect a big scoring game for Murray and for Jokic to get back in that triple-double steez, which you could also get at plus 120 for Wednesday.
So you've heard me really discuss it now since we started, Bet, right? I'm still on Denver. I still think they win in 5. I'm going to lay the 2.5. Again, I'm not expecting that type of three-point shooting performance from the Miami Heat, and I do expect Denver to pivot in regard to what we saw the Miami Heat come with. There are some prop bets out here that I'm going to play as well. How about Aaron Gordon under 13.5 points? I took the over in Game 2, but little did I know that Kevin Love was going to get as much playing time as he did to come in and offset that height differential that Aaron Gordon brought to the table. So I'm going under 13.5 points for Aaron Gordon. Jimmy Butler under points as well. With Aaron Gordon defending him, he doesn't score. If you look at the points that Jimmy Butler does put up, it's when Aaron Gordon is on the bench, not when he's on the court. So I'm going under points for Jimmy buckets or no buckets, and I'm going to go over points for Jokic. I feel that Miami feels that they have the secret sauce, and I think they're going to continue to try to do what they did in Game 2. And I think Jokic is going to go over his point total. All right, gentlemen, this is going to be fun. We're going to go from the hardwood to the gridiron, and we're going to keep it with the Miami Dolphins and the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat and the Denver Broncos. There we go. Let's start in Miami first and foremost. Let's check in with the Miami Dolphins. We got Marcel Louis-Jacques, who's going to give us an update in regard to Tua's progress from week 1 of OTAs. Let's listen in.
Well, Anita, we haven't gotten to see too many of the Dolphins' practices throughout OTAs, but Tua has looked comfortable in the 2 practices that were open to the media. Now, in the second year of this system under Mike McDaniel, the first time in his career he's been in the same system consecutive years, might I add, Tua has taken on a much more vocal leadership role compared to the leader by example he's been in years past. Now, despite that continuity, there are a couple things that Tua's doing differently. Notably, he's wearing a helmet cam at practice, which McDaniel says allows him and his teammates to see and hear what Tua is seeing and saying on the field. And also, after concussions kept him out of 5 games last season, Tua's trained in jiu-jitsu this offseason, an effort to strengthen his core and help him learn how to fall more efficiently. He's also put on a couple muscle pounds there. He's about 225 pounds and looks the part. The Dolphins made a lot of moves this offseason that suggest they see their Super Bowl window as right now, but so much of it depends on the health of Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that report. Now, Tua's passing yards, guys. That prop bet is out there right now. You can get to that window, 3,800.5 passing yards. Last year, 3,548. He was averaging 275 yards per game, 64.8% completion percentage. Eric, let's start with you. Are you going over under Tua's passing yard prop total this season?
Yeah, I would say for this season, Anita, I am going over. You look at Tua from last season, he was playing at a MVP caliber level through the first 10 games of the season. He ended up averaging 30.7 pass attempts and 273 passing yards per game last year. He's got a great head coach and offensive mind in Mike McDaniel in Miami. He's got 2 dynamic receivers, 2 of the fastest in the game in Tyreek Hill and also Jalen Waddle. Obviously, the biggest risk with Tua is the head injury, from last year. But as Marcel just mentioned, with Tua learning jiu-jitsu, that's obviously going to help him protect his head in the pocket and kind of fall to the ground in specific ways. So just given the offense and the playmakers surrounding him, I would bet the over on passing yards for Tua.
Dre, which side of the coin are you on here?
I'm going to take the under. I also have a little bit of experience with jiu-jitsu, and I've also put on a few pounds, but that's where the similarities end. I just can't look past the health question with Tua. He's never, as a pro, played more than the 13 games he played last season when he threw for about, 3,548 yards. And if you add in his last year in college, he's now missed significant time in 4 straight seasons. When you add in that the Dolphins may, he's clearly got the weapons on the outside to do it, but the Dolphins may try to emphasize the running game a little bit more to make the offense more balanced and to protect Tua. And then, you factor in the health history. It makes me lean under because, I just have to play a conservative.
Yeah, I hear you. And Dre, I'm with you. I have to go under here. Not a knock on Tua's ability, and obviously you can argue he's got one of the best wide receiving duos in the NFL. I just have some major concerns whether or not he's going to make it through the season because of the concussion history that we have seen and we have witnessed. So I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be a lot more conservative here, and I'm going to play the under of the passing yards total for Tua. Dre, let's take a look at some of the Dolphins futures out there that you can find on Caesars. Tua to win the MVP, 22-1. Win total 9.5. Playoff, yes. -150. No, -105. You've got Tyreek Hill, Waddle. There's a lot out there that one could wager on. What's your favorite futures bet for the Miami Dolphins heading into this season?
Yeah, there were a few that I liked, but I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle way over 1,025.5 yards. Waddle is entering what we used to call the magical year 3 for receivers, but he's coming off a sophomore campaign in which he received 1,300 and almost 60 yards, even with Tua, missing a significant portion of the season. So unless Waddle gets injured, I think he sails way past 10-25. To me, this might be one of my best bets as far as futures go in the NFL right now.
Oh, wow. Believe it or not, I'm going with the over 9.5 wins. And I know it's a competitive division with the Bills and, of course, now Aaron Rodgers with the Jets. But, man, on paper, this Miami Dolphins team looks so good. You know what you get to you know what they bring to the table offensively, but look what they've done defensively, bringing in Jalen Ramsey, David Long, as well as Deshaun Elliott. They upgraded a lot of talent on that defensive side of the ball, and I'm a huge believer in Fangio as the defensive coordinator. So I think the defense now is going to be a force to be reckoned with in Miami with this Dolphins team. And if Tua, God forbid, anything happens to Tua and he goes down, very familiar, Mike White, backup quarterback here in New York with the Jets, now in Miami, he could step in and win some ball games for the Miami Dolphins. Eric, what about you, man? You love playing those fantasy stats as well. Is there a fantasy guy? Is there a prop bet out there in regard to fantasy that you're looking at?
Yeah, so it's one player in fantasy I would keep my eye on. Add him to your watch list now, and that is Devon Achane. And one thing about Achane is that I'm like, this guy is so fast. I'm like, he ran a 4.3 at the NFL Combine. He's got speed, big play upside. It's on another level, and it really caught the attention of the Dolphins. One thing about Miami, because they only had 4 draft picks, and they used an early one on Achane, which is huge. Mike McDaniel was very high on him as a player. Now get this. Now in college, you look at Achane. I'm like, he forced a missed tackle on 29% of his career rushing attempts. He's also exceptional out of the field as a receiver out of the backfield. And also, you look at this Dolphins backfield. You've got Raheem Mostert. You've got Jeff Wilson. 2 running backs who are up there in age and do have durability issues. So you look at someone like Achane, I'm like, he could be a league winner towards the latter part of the season, but he's someone that any fantasy player out there should draft towards the tail end of his draft. You look at his average draft position, it's in the double-digit round. So again, I repeat, and I'll close on this, do not leave your fantasy draft without selecting Achane.
Oh boy, that's some really great advice. All right, let's turn our attention to the Denver Broncos. We're going to hear from Jeff Legwald in just a second on how first-year head coach Sean Payton could rejuvenate Russell Wilson.
Thanks, Anita. The Denver Broncos had the lowest scoring offense in the NFL last season. They had more drives finished with a punt or a turnover than anyone else in the league by a wide margin. And quarterback Russell Wilson, he had a career-low 16 touchdown passes and a career most 55 sacks. That's why Wilson's play has been such a big item on new coach Sean Payton's to-do list this offseason, and why Wilson's performance in the OTAs so far has been such a high interest here. But frankly, there's less of Wilson to see. He has lost weight. He won't say how many pounds. He said, "I'm not counting." But it's clear his fitness level was important to him as he immerses himself in Payton's playbook. And he's looked smooth and comfortable so far here in the early going. But Wilson, for his part, said he had to have the most important offseason of my life. That's how he phrased it.
Jeff, thank you so much. So, guys, just like Tua, let's take a look at the passing yard total for one Russell Wilson. It's at 3,800.5. So, Eric, let's start with you. Are you over or under on Russell Wilson this season?
Yeah, I had to think long and hard on this one, Anita, but I am going to go over on Russell Wilson's passing yards. So you look at the Denver Broncos, they made significant changes after a dismal 2022 season. So I really believe that they've set the stage for Wilson to be successful. So they hired Sean Payton. We all know his track record with the New Orleans Saints. I'm like, he's a great offensive coach. And we saw how he transformed that Saints offense into a powerhouse year in and year out with Drew Brees. So we did see that. Also, they did make some upgrades to the offensive line, I think, which is huge for this team. And also, you look at Wilson and the receivers that he has. He's got Jerry Jeudy. He's got Cortland Sutton. He's going to have a healthy Tim Patrick. And so that's also a feather in his cap. But I would say last but not least, I'm like, you look at the schedule for Denver. I'm like, it presents several opportunities for Wilson to thrive. They've got matchups against the AFC West and the AFC East divisions. Those have the potential to be very high-scoring games. And so to bring all that together, I do love Wilson this year. I have the utmost confidence in Sean Payton. I'm a lifelong New Orleans Saints fan, so I'm very well versed in what he did for that franchise. I believe he can have similar success with Russell Wilson in Denver.
Dre, over under for you, my friend.
I agree with Moody. I'm going over 3,800.5 yards for a lot of the reasons that he named. I think everyone feels better about this offense with Sean Payton calling the shots. And I think that was a really good point about the schedule that they'll have after an unsuccessful season last season. But really, for me, last year was one of the worst seasons of Wilson's career. He missed a couple games due to injury, and he still threw for over 3,500 yards. And, the opposite of what we were talking about earlier with Tua, Wilson's never played fewer than 14 games in a season in his career, and he played the maximum 16 for his first 9 seasons. So if he's able to stay healthy, as is his norm, and he's playing in this better system, and he just has a reasonable bounce back, I think he has a good chance to get back to the 4,000-yard mark that he averaged for 6 seasons between 2015 and 2020. I think that could be what we might expect from Russell Wilson this season.
All right, gentlemen, we're 3 for 3. All of us are going over on Russell Wilson passing yards. I'm with you, E. In Sean Payton, I trust. I think he's one of the best head coaches, let alone offensive genius masterminds in the NFL. I think Wilson struggled big time with Nathaniel Hackett. His system did not fit Russell Wilson very well. And Jerry Jeudy, keep in mind how many injuries the Denver Broncos were facing last year. So hopefully they can come in and have a lot more health with their squad. All right, let's take a look at some of the Broncos futures out there on Caesars as well. Wilson to win the MVP, 45-1. Payton to win Coach of the Year, 10-1. Win totals at 8.5. Playoffs, yes, plus 175. Playoffs, no, minus 210. Dre, what's your favorite prop bet for the Denver Broncos heading into this season?
Well, I'm happy you did the Denver Nuggets thing because I've been trying so hard not to be the first one to say Denver Nuggets. My prop bet is Jerry Jeudy over 900.5 yards. He sailed way past that last year. He only played in 15 games. He started 14 of them, and he still went for 950-something yards last season. We just have talked a lot about how much better the offense should look. We've talked about how much better we expect Russell Wilson to be. So when I put that together, I expect Jeudy to have a really good chance to turn in his first 1,000-yard season as a pro.
I like it. For me, again, we've been sitting here talking about how much in Sean Payton we trust. So I'm going to go with Sean Payton, Coach of the Year. He's tied with Dan Campbell. A lot of people believe that the Lions are going to make some noise in that NFC North, and I believe that as well. But I just don't sleep on this Denver team right now with Sean Payton, and I think just how great he's going to have Russell Wilson ready. So I'm going to go Sean Payton, Coach of the Year. Again, you can get that at 10-1. Eric, let's end it strong with you in regard to what are you looking at fantasy-wise?
Yeah, from a fantasy perspective, Anita, I'm looking at Samaje Perine. So again, write the name down. He's readily available in the double-digit rounds of fantasy football drafts right now. One thing about Javonte Williams, fantasy managers were excited about Javonte Williams last year, went down with a serious knee injury in October. So the timetable, no one has confirmed, hey, is he going to be okay to start the season? They're being very vague on that. So fantasy managers should be proactive and expect Williams to get off to a slow start this season. And not every running back can be Adrian Peterson and just bounce back just at the snap of a finger from, a serious knee injury. So enter Samaje Perine here. You can get some spot starts from Perine in this offense masterminded by, the Saints, former Saints coach Sean Payton. You look at what Payton would do in New Orleans. He ran a running back by committee very successfully behind, that offensive line in New Orleans. And the offensive line in Denver is upgraded, so Perine's in a good spot there. But I'll close on this, Anita. You look at the spot starts that Perine had last year with the Cincinnati Bengals. This is impressive. You look at these numbers. In 3 games, from Week 11 through Week 13, he averaged 21 touches and 23.6 fantasy points per game over that time frame. So again, do not leave your fantasy draft without Samaje Perine.
I'm taking notes, E. I'm taking notes. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Monday edition of Bet. Really do appreciate it. I'm sure we'll see you again later on this week. As always, when we end the show, we like to end the show with "Before I Let You Go." I'm not here on Wednesday, so I'm going to give you my Canadian Open picks when it comes to golf. Some par 3 for you early on this Monday. The Canadian Open taking place at Oakdale, pretty much right on the outskirts of downtown Toronto. 6 of the last 7 winners, not Americans. No. Parkland-style course, bent grass on the greens, and the Wells Fargo tournament, good indicator as to who will do well here as opposed to who did well at the Wells Fargo. So who do I have? I'm going chalk. I'm going Rory here. He's the favorite. You can get him at some good money. He won it in 2019 as well as 2022, tied for 7th last week at the Memorial, and also he won at the Wells Fargo. So again, 2 tracks that coexist, that align well. Give me Hatton to finish in the top 5. He's playing great golf. Tied for 3rd at the Wells, tied for 5th at the Byron Nelson, and tied for 12th last week at Memorial. He's just gaining strokes across the board. And last but not least, give me the Canadian. Corey Connors to finish in the top 10, hoping to become the first Canadian since 1954 to win a tournament on his home soil. He's going to have a gallery cheering for him. He tied for 6th here last year. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Bet on Monday. We'll see you later on the week.